Oh, welcome in. My name is Angel. I'm in the process of holding more space for my natural soul's expression, and I invite you to come along with me. I'm traveling, so things look a little bit different in the background. And I went out today, so hair is styled, face is on, and I'm wearing something other than my comfy clothes. Today was a really, 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 really good day. And I don't know where to start. Usually I have kind of an empty mind when I hit record, but today I feel whole and I feel full. So I'm wondering if there might be a way to tie together the themes that helped me to feel so whole today. I'm going to hit pause only this one time, and there it is, pause, and I'll be right back. Uh, right back to where we were. I'm hoping I am able to really weave together the themes of the day because in my mind, it all makes sense on how they tie together. But I often find that if I'm not grounded or centered, my thoughts can come out very, very scattered. Also, I'm learning I'm an external processor. And so sometimes I'll just talk just to talk to make sure things become organized so they don't always start off organized. That being said, I'm going to get quiet and I'm going to see what my soul has to say about the day. Okay. Whoa. I just felt a deep wave of calm, a deep sense of presence. So I am fully here. And that feels good. And it can be a hard sensation to feel in in the world, generally speaking. So I'm very grateful that my habits, my rituals, and my routines have given me the tools in my artillery to be able to center and on YouTube for 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 that matter. If it's not one thing, it's another. There's always going to be something to be anxious about, to be depressed about, to grieve, to worry about, to fret about, to judge, to criticize, to blame, to shame, to hate. In fact, that's the brain's whole shtick, clocking kind of like what's wrong with things, in the name of safety, as we've talked about before. With that being said, I can't help but think tools that do help you become grounded are necessary. So you can hear your voice above the noise, feel inside your body the internal guidance system and what it's trying to tell you so that you can fulfill your own needs and thus walk this earth a little less misaligned. Now, I speak on these topics mostly because this has been my life's experience and my life's practice and my life's work. But I've never done it in this way of trying to explain online. And I don't even know if it's explaining online as much as it's more exploring and perhaps exploring with like-minded people eventually. Sometimes when I'm talking to previous generations, older elders, if you will, I'll catch advice that doesn't necessarily resonate. And I have this little bit of a judgment thought sometimes of like, gosh, the previous generation is preparing us for a world that no longer exists, right? And that makes absolute sense. They only know what worked for them in their economy, society, culture, world, socioeconomics. The list goes on. Their time. But as we know, the only thing consistent is change. And I find some of the advice that they give doesn't necessarily work for one, this and next generations, but then also for me, I'm kind of an oddball out, if you will. I've never really fit in um well, anywhere, but I have an interesting, if you can't tell from the past 28 or 9 videos, I have a different way of thinking. And I think I've always been afraid to show that because I was told that that was unacceptable because it's not in the norm. So, two times does the previous generation's advice not necessarily work for me personally. I'll keep it me personally because who am I to say about you and yours? One thing that I have noticed is, see, this is where it gets a little funky. How am I supposed to make this next piece cohesive without like rehearsing it beforehand? So you're just getting real and raw, natural soul's expression. Let me slow down a bit. It seems to me, though, that no matter what generation you are in, there is a consistent pattern of disconnection within humans. Our mind is disconnected from our hearts. Our hearts are disconnected from our bodies, right? You ask someone how they are. Oh, I'm doing blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, I wasn't asking what are you up to? How do you feel right now? Are you happy? What are you doing? Right? Um, and it kind of makes sense to me, this disconnection that humans have, no matter what generation you are in, because from a small age, as soon as you enter, school, they tell you to sit down, shut up, and you get the gold star. Um, Thus pulling you away from your natural soul's essence kind of immediately. And then what? We're in school for X amount of years. And so to me and my outside looking in perception, it makes sense um that more and more people feel disconnected from their natural soul's essence later on in life, growing up and later on in life. And that's just one way that I see how people become quote unquote misaligned, disconnected, however you want to phrase that in your life. Now, I know that you feel this or you understand what I'm talking about to a certain degree because you are human. And I feel like a lot of our, pro- mm, yeah, I'm just going to say it. Okay, for science. I think a lot of projected lower vibrational shit comes from people being misaligned, not having their real needs, like whatever's underneath it, met. So, what am I trying to say here? Oh, what is my soul trying to say here? Hold on. Also, if you keep showing up here, thank you so much for holding space for the messy part, for me just figuring out how to stay connected and get in alignment and hear my natural soul's expression. It's kind of fun, very vulnerable, but more fun, which is cool. Today I had lunch with a friend, and she was a little bit of a Tasmanian devil. And she was kind of ruminating in anxiety and fear, confusion, decision fatigue, analysis paralysis. If you don't know what those things are, it's when you're kind of overthinking all of your options to the point where you don't make a move. And she's also, when asked about what she can do to kind of gain a little bit of control, she was also ruminating in what seemed like a second whirlwind of blame and shame and guilt. Now, these are things that I'm very, very familiar with. And so, from the outside looking in, I wanted to start to coach her. But I'm also learning boundaries. I'm also learning consent. I'm also learning that not everybody wants to or is ready to mm, see themselves and hold themselves accountable and take their power back. Not everybody is um, aware that they have a power in their life, power of choice, power of focus, power of intention. So for the first, I want to say 30 minutes or so, I wanted to combat her thinking, well, what about this? And what about that? And what about? And what about? And then slowly started to realize she didn't want to come out of that, or it wasn't time, or she wasn't ready. And it was starting to move me energetically to the point where I was starting to get frustrated, quite frankly. My human was getting frustrated because I love this person. She doesn't deserve to go to be a double Tasmanian devil on a daily basis. And, she lives alone. She watches the news. She's elderly. She's got an aging mom. She's just got all of these, as we all do, all of these factors that want to keep you and will keep you there in these cages. Because in the same sentence, she's like, well, I'm retired and I have freedom. I can do whatever I want. And I couldn't help but think, and yet you choose to stay in these cages. The dog is barking and I just got distracted. Should I pause again? I don't really want to, but if I do, that's why. So as I'm sitting there and I'm noticing my internal navigation system going, check engine light on, we're feeling moved. She's, you know, project okay. This is what came up for real, for real. She's vomiting all over us. Mayday, mayday. This can bring our day down. I had a really good morning, so I was like, oh my gosh, is she gonna fuck up my momentum? You know? And really just wanting okay. I found myself wanting to control the external in order to try and control my internal states, right? But clear as day, I could hear my what I'm calling my grounded girl work. The work is working. Instead of trying to control the external and trying to convince somebody of something that they're not ready for and being moved to match her and lower down to somewhere I didn't want to go, I created similar to how I tune into my spirit for these things, I created a safe little quiet space inside of me so that I can be response able to respond rather than be energetically charged in an emotional reaction. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. I checked her a couple times. I'm like, so when are you going to take accountability for allowing this to move you in this way? Twice, actually. Hey, it's all a practice, my guy. But once I locked in, it was like a portal. Oh, is this language going to chase you away? Maybe. It was like a portal into peace. Angel, this is not yours to pick up. You don't have to carry this. What do you need right now? How much of this more can you take? Because on the other side, as a recovering people pleaser, I'm like, well, maybe listening to her is helping. Maybe she's venting right now. But you can kind of clock the difference um, when somebody is expressing expressing instead of suppressing, when somebody is expressing to the point of adding more negative momentum to what they're talking about, or venting and releasing and truly expelling something out of the body to then chill in that like neutrality or now fill up in something a little more positive, uplifting, empowering, and movement forward. And once I realized that it was, the first one, I said, okay, hey, I got like 10 more minutes, but if this is helping you, and thank you for trusting me with this. I'm glad I could be a safe place where you can vent. Um, but I have about 10 more minutes and I have to scoot, which was received well. And in fact, she became a little more aware and kind of apologized. Not that that's what I was searching for. And I'm digressing. So let me tune back in to the next piece that I think threads together in the first 3, 4 pieces. Once I got into the car and I left, I thought, now there were some insecure moments of like, do some of my friends feel depleted or moved in a negative way when I'm processing or venting or da 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 da? And instead of going into that paranoia, anxiety, shame, I just went into gratitude for the friends that I have where I don't have to be on for. I can vent to, and they accept all versions of me. And I was so proud of myself, first of all, to be that for her to the capacity that I had, and grateful for my friends that I feel safe and seen and understood with. And I started to get emotional. I started to cry a little. But when I returned back to, where I am, something pretty amazing happened. I wanted to nourish, I wanted to eat nourishing food. Now, in the midst of any great change or transition, the nervous system can sometimes need recalibration. And if we don't have the proper grounding tools, then we can fall into self-sabotaging and self-sabotaging is really the word that I can come up with, but self-sabotaging habits. And so, over the last few weeks, I found myself kind of swaying and moving into old habits of, escapism, um, back into like the wonky relationship with food. I think I disclosed that on a previous video is I used to have a crazy relationship with food. And so lately it's been a little weird with the transitions that are going on in my life. Um, so to be hit with a very kind internal dialogue that said, "Hey, I want nourishment," then to hear it and be aware of it, and then to act on it were all three very amazing to me side effects of the grounded girl work that I'm in fact doing. So that's all like, ooh, right? I then proceeded to set up a beautiful lunch spot in this gorgeous backyard, put on a little, what was I listening to? Jazz. Make the biggest, most delicious and nutritious salad that I didn't even have to put into a smaller bowl because I'm not sharing it. And my brought my journal out there and spent a good 2 hours literally and figuratively feeding myself in more ways than one. Why am I saying all this? Because the last piece of all of this is how do I say this? Because in a world where if it's not one thing, it's another. If it's not one thing, it's another thing that triggers us, that puts us in our survival mode, that has us operating at these lower vibrational states more often than not. Because there's a place for, anger and rage and sadness and grief and loss. I'm not saying lower vibrational things are bad, but when we operate in those more often than not on a daily basis, we know that those patterns that we repeat thus then create a life of that nature. And again, nothing wrong or bad. If you choose to be comfortable in that, that is for you, but it's not for me. And I learned this evening it's not for who's meant for me, who's meant to roll with me, be it ideal clients, be it sisterhood, be it YouTube followers. I hate that word. I'll work on that. Hate that word. Um, Having these skills to be able to ground, tune in, honor, listen, love, respect, accept, put up boundaries, protect, right? Self can feel selfish, but when we are able to pour back into ourselves, then it really doesn't fucking matter what's happening externally. At this snapshot in time, when you're listening to this, I can't help but believe that these skills are fundamental to any generation at any time, no matter what the politics, the economics, the culture, the society is doing externally, familial stuff, social stuff. If we can stay grounded and connected to our mind, body, spirit, this might sound delulu, but I think there's nothing you can't fucking do. I know it's very human in me to try and find purpose in things, but I'm starting to shift my belief that not everything has to have a purpose, but I think there's power in everything. The good, the bad, and the ugly. It's all just energy to be used for whatever you want to use it for. Because wasn't it so cool that even though I just sat at an hour lunch where someone was just, again, two Tasmanian devils deep, sounds like a drink, right? Ooh, yikes. Uh, I utilize that to double down and anchor into my practices. See, Angel, you don't want to be that. So let's get clear on what we want. What are our core values? What do we want to feel right now? How do we want to operate? Who do we want to be? I smile because who I want to be is present and accounted for. This is it. And so it was quite fascinating to then come inside from lunch and immediately call a loved one and express to them how whole I feel in this moment. I don't know. Can you feel this? I feel as though none of my wounds exist. This version of me doesn't feel like she's ever been abandoned, divorced, misunderstood, uh, any and all wounds, unlovable, unworthy, unseen, unheard, misunderstood. She feels whole. I feel whole. And so there I left a conversation of feeling whole into a beautiful coaching session of a gal who's wrapping up my 5-week program. And the program is working. Sorry. I'm emotional because answering the calls of the heart while partnering with my girls has brought us all to a sense of wholeness. Now, now check me if this doesn't clock. But if more people operated from a place of wholeness, perhaps there would be more love and connection and less insert your current grievance of the world, of our country, of your family, of your relationship, of your current circumstances. I know I didn't get into the mechanics of how to, but honestly, the mechanics of how to feel whole are going to look and feel different to everybody. And so, what's working for me, yeah, okay, a version of what's working for me is working for my girls, but it's going to look different to you too. So, who am I to get on here and be like, this is what you need to do? This is my fucking problem with like influencers, you know? Here, if you want to feel this, you have to do this. I can share what's working, but essentially, like, you have to do the work. So I guess it's like just being clear on like who do you want to be? Who do you want to be? So there is my bestest job of trying to tether in everything that happened to me that I felt was now dark here. So I think I'm gonna hop off. And if you're still listening to this, I appreciate it. yeah, the feeling of wholeness is new for me. So thank you for being here for this moment. Um, and I'm glad I'm documenting it because then if I ever decide to rewatch some of this stuff, I can see where I was, how I was feeling, and tune back into that at any given moment in time. All right. See you tomorrow.